Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Good evening, and welcome to another experience of the African Speaks. Peace and blessings, family. One, I'm going to always say, of course, I try to be as consistent as possible, and with my schedule, sometimes I'm able to be on time, and sometimes I might skip a week, depending on what is happening around me and my relationship to the community, my relationship to Wealth of Land, the youth program. So I do my best and I appreciate, of course, I mess up the algorithm a bit, but I truly appreciate those hanging out. We've been talking about the power of the divine self, the series, and I never imagined it would be as deep as it is. When you start going into what it entails and the magnitude of it, and then actually having friends and family who listen, who saying, bro, uh, I need help with this part aspect or that part aspect. Could you please speak on this or that? And then the having the ancestral downloads come to me. I'm deeply grateful to have uh, the ancestors open me up and to deliver this. And so now, we're on chapter 26. And so we're going to get there. But in that space, we know that we're talking about knowing thyself. This whole experience, this whole journey, this whole process is about knowing thyself. And we get into the meat and potatoes, everything. The meat and potatoes of all of it, because we had to go back and talk to the manifestation of when the Most High said, "Let us make man in our image." I had to take you all the way back there to get you to understand the true purpose of why you're here. Mm. God, experiencing God through God. Mm. Knowing yourself. Trust me, this thing gets deeper. And so, one of the things that we did previously was dealing in the chapter 22, and everything about this is about how to expand your understanding about chapter 22, how to expand your experience of chapter 22, because chapter 22 is when we took a step-by-step process of going inside ourselves, the pathway to the internal you, trying to go inside your own level of consciousness to understand who you are, whose you are, and why you're here. And what we did was, and it was just stage one, it was the first level. And in that first level, we said, hey, you got to find the state of peace, a state of peace on the outside, creating an experience around your house or well, in your environment where you can go internal. And then in that state of peace, we said we go internal. We went to the point where we interacted, engaged our ancestors. From our ancestors, we went deep into the realm of consciousness so that we can actually take a look at our most powerful selves. But within inside ourselves, we didn't start. We started from a place of first finding that place of peace on the inside. Now we developed a scenario where we had a place of peace on the outside where we're sitting down meditating, but then we said we got to get to that place of peace on the inside. And from that place of peace is when we took that journey. We took that internal journey to see and experience a higher state of you in that space. And so we said, I don't know. And I said, I don't know what level or what version that you saw, but you got to see a better you. And then last week we talked about, or the last time we was online, we talked about in chapter 25, in the rage of righteous indignation, because now you got to go a level beyond just meeting that higher state of you. Because now when you went into this process and you talk to your higher self or whatever level there was, then you come out, of course, and you this is a lifelong process. And I got to say this is a lifelong process because I have individuals in my community who have been doing this for a long time, but they have plateaued. They have reached an experience where they say, well, what? And I remember during one of our sit-downs, the sister said, well, what can I do at the age that I'm at? And the response to her was, well, you've done your job. No. Every level, every age has a different level of responsibility to the development of higher consciousness to a people. And you got to be able to fluctuate with where you are, with where you at. That's a whole nother level of warfare. because that's exactly what we said. You have to still in be having that experience of the rage of a righteous indignation, which is a justified anger that comes from your experience and connection to God and being able to see yourself. Because after you go inside yourself to actually to get a glimpse of who your higher self was called to be, yeah, you should be feeling some type of way. There's a feeling some type of way, and then we understand that there is a constant experience of spiritual warfare. There's a not just the war, and we a lot of us a lot of us get stuck on the external process of warfare, spiritual warfare, things external, and so we have tons of people. If we're not doing this in our communities, well, you can't really engage the issues of your communities if you ain't engaging the issue of something that's happening inside you. That's not going to happen. And so that's a problem. That's something that we have to take a look at. And Nicole, I see you. Yeah, you're gonna have to send me a text. Right. So we're dealing with the issue of spiritual warfare, which is deeply and heavily important. And so this week we get to that point where, okay, what are we doing war against? Because it's not the first level of spiritual warfare is not the system. And I know we have a whole conversation on almost every Sunday where we're discussing what Trump is doing, which is true. We can't stop what the Eurocentric genotype is doing for themselves and against us. And of course, we have to be able to come together to fight against that. But as we come together, the warfare that we have is not necessarily against them first, but we have to look within ourselves. We have to constant do warfare within ourselves so that we can do the external work. And that's why this is so important. We got to be able to do the internal, unseen labor. So that every time we look up and every time somebody's looking within our community, they can see our action. I had a conversation with a sister the other day, and I said, I don't know what hopelessness feels like because I didn't grow up in the hood. You're not allowed to grow up where I grew up. You weren't allowed to be hopeless. I wasn't going to make it to this stage with a state of hopelessness. And so it was able to help me transition into that fight to being able to focus on that unseen warfare. And so I have to be, when they say you have to be the change you seek, who else is going to come from? And so now we're focused on, and I've done this before if you watch the African Speakers years ago, but we're going to take a different look at it. Shadow work. And then trying to understand what is shadow work. And when we look at the titles, back to the black of things, we realize that we go through different things that any other people go through. And so when you're doing shadow work, it's important that you understand what you're fighting against when it comes to shadow work. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And what's the battle? What's the conversation about? So in shadow working, we'll give you a basic understanding. They lied to you when they told you, you come into this world disconnected from God. Not at all. In your beginning, you are a whole being. In your development, you are a whole being. You don't come fragmented. You don't come broken. You don't come conditioned. You come whole. The most powerful, this is why they say in scripture, you got to be born again. Why? Because when you first came to this experience of physical realm, You came whole. No fear, no anything, no doubt, no apprehension. You came whole. And somewhere along the line, in you becoming whole, because you are so dependent as an infant, you are codependent as an infant to everybody around you, and they bring you into the experience of socialization. What? Yeah. And so the ages of socialization, which is teaching you everything about you according to your environment. So of course you have your peers that you learn how to be, that you socialize. You have your siblings, right? You have your people's, your spiritual group, church, teachers in elementary school, middle school, preschool, first level of learning, high school, and anything after that. Teachers about anything, anybody in the community that are teachers. You have your parents. Mm. That is the first level of education, your parents. So if your parents are broken and had not done work, what do you think they broke in this coat to? You. Then now, more than anything, because at one point, Sesame Street was raising our children with TV. Now it's social media. Media, well, it just says media, but it's social media. It's raising our kids. And to the state that a lot of times you will see infants with iPads, infants with iPads, playing toys and games or whatever it is, watching cartoons with hidden storylines. So you go from being whole to being socialized. Now, in here, you deal with certain traumas, certain shortcomings, falsehoods in all of this. But then, and I have individuals who have gone through the process of saying, I'm dealing with, I've dealt with the trauma of my mama or my daddy or whatever, you know, yeah. And I had a female who I was talking to. I said, well, do you understand how socialization manifested before our parents? We're talking about for black people when you're dealing with getting back to the black of things. We said when we're going down this road of understanding the power, let me see if I could do this, dealing with the power of the divine self and trying to get to who we are in God is what we're looking at. The unseen labor of shadow work. We get to that point where we're dealing with post traumatic slave syndrome here. Then you're dealing with the, the slave trade. Then you're dealing with colonialism. There's a lot a part of our psyche that we have to undo in order to understand and even start utilizing and getting to the power of the divine self. And shadow work is just is the beginning. When you first started, yeah, you are dealing with surface. But everything that you deal with in that state comes all the way back to this. You're like, yeah, if you don't deal with the post traumatic slave syndrome, if you're not going that far inside your experience, you're just still barely touching the surface. And then again, this is a lifetime battle. Why? Because we never escape this. We never escape the mechanisms of socialization until we can build institutions that are manifested on for the sake of our development. Institutions, not just your husband. Of course, the home is important, but the home is supposed to be, it's the microcosm of the macrocosm. It's supposed to be the community, the environment, the government. It's the small piece that is supposed to give us an image of what the large piece looks like. So we have to do that unseen work. We have to go inside. We have to get busy because, again, because of these situations, we came in the world whole. But once we started getting socialized, we started becoming fragmented. And some of us may not have any big traumas. Some of us may not have any major traumatic issues. But some of us have some major ones. So in that space, you still are fragmented. And what the job of the seeker, the spiritual seeker, is to get back to that point of being whole. And when you get back to that point of being whole, or that journey toward becoming whole again, is the shadow work. Now you get the understanding of the unseen labor. Because in that space of dealing with your fragmented self, now some of it in that process is getting to deal with the things that you don't know about yourself, but then some of it is not always negative. Dealing with shadow work is not always negative, because the deeper you go inside yourself, the more you have as an opportunity to come across what is planted on the inside of you. And I do this for Worlds of Akibaland all the time. This is where we're trying to get you to. Can you imagine what our communities would be like if the individuals that you saw are not functioning from a fragmented state, but function from a state where they're tapping into all of their spiritual gifts, not just pieces of them, all of them, where you're unreleased to the point where there are no walls, there are no blacks, there is no hesitation or fear, and we're going to start dealing with that. So when we started talking about that scenario where we're going into you, because you got to go back. We did it once, but this is a process of doing it every week. And so we said, when we're walking into it, it's that part where you walk into yourself and you meditate and you get to that place of peace and you go down the corridor. And if you haven't seen it, y'all need to go back and watch this, because this is an extension of this practice. Chapter 26 is a extension of how to increase the experience of chapter 22. They're layered. Go to the African Speak YouTube and look for it. They're layered. And so in this space, you have to get to that point where you're not scared to walk down that fiery road where you got, and it's one thing of coming out after speaking to your ancestors and seeing yourself, and then you're asking your ancestors to lead you to where you're supposed to be. Now that walk is powerful, just to get inside yourself where you can experience that. But then once you experience that, you don't walk alone. And then you get to see yourself before your trauma or through your trauma. That first walk, that first experience and going to the pathway of the internal you can see yourself through your trauma. You haven't worked your trauma yet, but you had a conversation with somebody that exists where your trauma doesn't. You got to see yourself, man, if I could not have this weight on my back, who could I be? That's what we showed you. Now, doing the unseen work gets you to come out of that. While you're in that experience, it's time to go through the fire. The fire where you begin to walk down a place inside yourself that is a little bit dark. This is the unknown you. Who wants to walk down that road without the understanding and the experience of righteous indignation? I'm so upset that when I got to see who I could be, that I got to go down this road. Why? Because I need to get to the person that I saw when I was in the place of peace with them inside my own meditation. I got to get to that person. So, you can get there. And some people, I really don't want to go through this because you have to drum up. And I remember the first time I was asked to, can you see? And we was in the meditation and was in our community and we was doing spiritual discord. We did the yoga movements, massages, the drums, everything was there. And we went into that the spiritual process. When they said, who was the person that keeps you? What is the experience in life that keeps you from experiencing God within? Bring that person or that spirit in the room and deal with it. I paused. I'm like, I started shaking and trembling because I was angry. It wasn't a righteous indignation. It was some, man. When I said, are you sure? Hey, sister, McKinney, are you sure I could do this? Everybody was, She said, yes, brother. And I started slowly. And as I walked down that road of the darker part of myself, trying to get to the thing that was in my life that was immediate, my immediate block of socialization, my immediate block, not bigger issues, but my immediate, what I was going through at that moment in time. Because you got to travel all the way back until you get to the point where you wasn't even born yet, and you still got to deal with the issues of your father, your father's father, and your father's father's father, the epigenetic trauma. You got to deal with that still, but I was just dealing with the immediate. And when I was able to deal with that, and I went and I said, I wanted to know, because I wanted to understand life without this pain, without this hurt, without this, but you have to go with a sense of knowing that you're doing a righteous work. This journey is not an easy journey. And so the last time we talked about it, I put it like this. You have to travel. This journey of the unseen labor of shadow work takes you through your conscious mind, into your preconscious mind, into your subconscious mind, because we're still trying to get to that collective consciousness. And we're going to talk about that in these chapters to come. But you got to do this work first. And in this work, it is detailed. It's detailed. Because you cannot get to the spot where you're dealing with or experiencing that first person, the different levels of the self, the awareness. You can't get there if you're not dealing with only the 5% that you use. So okay, I'm in my 5%. That's the logic mind. That's your willpower, your creative thinking, my short-term memory. We'll get with that. But then you start traveling downward to your subconsciousness and your unconsciousness, the things that you don't know. And I remember going through therapy in a phase of my life, and I truly appreciate Cardinal Olabayo. And anybody who's listening to my community, and I'm dropping these names, Fundi McKinney, Cardinal Olabayo, these were the women in my community who pulled the brother out of everything that I was holding. And never understood. They took me back to when I was 7. My first traumatic experience. She just kept going back, unleashing layers. And so in that subconsciousness, you're dealing with your beliefs. You're dealing with your long-term memory. I didn't understand that my unconscious state, that I was still affected by the emotional abuse of my dad. The protective reactions, why you safeguard and you anger, you get back. You can't do that without doing the unseen work. Then your imagination. Some people don't even have an imagination. I spoke to a group of kids. Where's your imagination at? Well, it's stuck somewhere. And they were 7 and 9. The world, according to social media, is affecting our kids more where you don't have, and your imagination is your God mind. It's your God mind. And so if you don't have that, killing it. Now, even in your subconsciousness, it controls the systems of your body. This is where you can do self healing. You become your own healer. Why? Because when you reach that level where you are no longer fragmented and you're functioning from a state of wholeness, yet you're at an adult level, you can heal yourself. What? Then your emotions. We last week we talked about emotional intelligence. Your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. Your values, why you believe certain things and do certain things. You're able to take a look at those. Your intuition, you're tapping into, and we said it. After you go through chapter and you deal with going inside the internal you, we said that you activate your right side of your brain where that intuition sparks, that creativity sparks. The unseen labor opens up the epigenetic information that is in your bloodline for generations to generations from generations, and you become the ultimate you. You become the wisdom of everybody before you. That still takes time, though. She said, caught up in, yeah. Okay, I appreciate you that, Najuma. They said everybody using Chat GPT now. Right. And in that space of using Chat GPT, it said there's no challenge to think for yourself no more. They're taking away your ability to only have for you not to even create. This is what the danger of AI is going to do. So you got to be careful. Learn how to use technology. So that's where there's no adults now and kids now, no imagination. And even when they're going to school, they're talking about with the AI and people using AI to create essays. They have an AI search agent to tell whether or not it came from AI. Ain't that something? And then in this also journey of the unseen fear, when you're traveling down into your subconscious, you start dealing with your fears. Wait a minute, I came into this world whole. So what fear should I have? But you develop your fears because of your socialization. Ain't that something? And from that, you also notice your self image. Why don't we like being black? Why don't we like being African? Why don't we like our culture? Why don't we want to understand our history? Why don't we want to know our traditions? And what hesitation do we have diving into that? We can all around the world celebrate Juneteenth. All types of black people celebrate Juneteenth, but they don't sit down and embrace the culture. You can have a bunch of people celebrating Juneteenth, but the same people just celebrating Juneteenth is celebrating the 4th of July. But then when you get to that point, the best part of doing the shadow work is you get down to that space of your programming where you have the ability to reprogram yourself and get back to a whole being. We dealing with the power of the divine self. Because there's a lot of individuals who will embody the Afrocentric lifestyle, but never really dive deep inside themselves where they're correcting anything that takes them to a place where they truly manifest their divine self. So this is the conversation of the power of the divine self, not the power of the perfect slave, where you just focus on you're using these. You have a lot of people who are dealing with these issues because we want to deal with generational wealth. Why? Because we want to live amongst a society that is corrupting our bloodline without building any institutions. They're not trying to get to this. Because when you understand and you take a shot at the unseen work, yeah, there's going to become some work to do. So now when you're dealing with the issue of, you know what, I'm not trying to live comfortably in a world that is destroying us. I'm trying to access something within inside myself so that I can affect the same experience on everybody around me. Mm, that's a whole different conversation. And so you're going deeper in. So in that space, when you know what you can gain from the unseen, if I can tap into the gifts of who I am, why am I not going to walk down that road to face the demons that are inside me? Either I can be what the world made me, or I can make an attempt to have an experience of the God within. What? What? So, what choice are you making in this journey? This unseen labor is important, and by no means, if you're not, if you have a community, it's a process and a program. So when you're dealing with this, by no, you got to come with a sense of righteous indignation. You can't go down this road without a sense of righteous indignation. Why? Because you're trying to get to the God within you. So you got to come with all the tools. Excuse me. You got to come with the stones, the crystals. You got to come with prayer, meditation. You got to come with African dance, yoga, Tai Chi. You got to come, you got to bring it out. The conversations with your ancestors. You got to pull all the tools that the Creator has placed. This is why it's necessary to understand African culture, because we're trying to get back to what God has called us to be. And at one point in our lives, we were directly connected to the Creator until the genotype said, let's go into Africa and destroy all the ministers, all the teachings, all the mystery systems. Let's destroy it all and only leave the worker class. There were no leaders. There was nothing for us to even sit with. And ain't that something? But you got to use all your tools. You got to sit down, and even now, that's why calling on your ancestors is so important. All your tools. So it's your meditations, it's everything. People say, why y'all don't wear crosses? Because crosses is signification of death and sacrifice. No, we wear ankhs. If you're going to wear something that is spiritual, we're going to wear ankhs and other forms of spiritual paraphernalia that signifies something greater. And so you're also going to go talk to your ancestors. Why? Because I need y'all with me as I go inside myself. And where else are they going to exist but in my own DNA, epigenetics? We have all of them within us. It ain't something outside of ourselves. We talking about accessing our DNA process. Our cellular makeup. I had to talk to a brother during World of Akib Land church service last week. We didn't live stream it because we're working on some things, some changes. And I said, as I pour in each one of you, I could slowly become immortal. And one brother, oh, you don't pour nothing in me. I'm my own person. I had to pause him. I said, nobody's their own person. I said, I'm going to break it down genetically. You are half your mother and half your father. Your mother and father are half, your father's half his mother and half his father. Then them two, and then you can go back until you break up. You are a combination of everybody genetically. And their information and wisdom is inside you. And in this journey of unseen labor is what you're unlocking. You got to use all your tools in this journey of the power of the divine self. All of it. Because if you don't, then you can only action a small fraction when it comes to you being fragmented. You're only going to put a few pieces together. A few. And I've seen a community manifest some massive things with only putting a few things together. Then we dismantle programs. And it's hard for us to put anything together with a dismantled program. But who's at home doing the work? Who's at home continuing the process? We needed to test the ability of the community that who will go home to do the work. The work starts at the house and you bring it to the institution. That is the science of the best self. You bring it to the institution. And in that place, when you're dealing with bringing all of you, and you sit down and we talk about institutional development, of course you can't continue this process without community. You will see so many individuals out here doing work by themselves. And I have a friend who has been doing it for years solo, and she still is as fragmented as all outdoors. And now she's understanding you can't separate yourself in these processes. You can't separate yourself from those individuals who are also doing the work. When I have it hard, so I have to lock myself at home, and I got to focus on me. That is Eurocentric and has no power to it. Especially if you're going inside yourself, you realize you got to tap into your ancestors. You realize you got to go into your culture and everything. You got to open up your epigenetic trauma, but you also got to open your epigenetic information. You're never by yourself. You start dealing with the issue of being completely connected. So in that space, and you're using whatever artifacts God gave, because everything has frequency, and we'll deal with that frequency, that vibration, that resonance soon. That might be the next chapter. You deal with the meditation and prayer and the movements, your diet. We talked about that mindful consumption. You deal with the rituals. You're interacting and venerating your ancestors. You ain't serving your ancestors. You're venerating them and thanking them for the work that they're doing, the unseen work that they do for you. And then you also have a community where you connect and you have that dialogue. This is why I do what I do. The African in me speaks, so the African in you can speak. What you're not getting in your community in terms of the experience of programming and development, I said, what I learned, I'm going to teach you. I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not waiting. When I learn something, I'm sharing. Whether or not you give me a platform or not to do it in my community, I'm going to do it anyway. Why? Because it is what I've learned in my unseen labor. It is what I'm called to do in my unseen labor. It is what is happening to me and the things that are opening up inside of me through my unseen labor. Fundi Nionu, one love. I appreciate you, sister. Everybody who's listening to the community. I'm calling sisters who was like, hey, she said, brother, we see you. Excuse me? We see you. We don't know what got a hold of you, but something's got a hold of you, and we see you. Do what God calls you to do. And it moved me to the point where I was like, look, I've watched a whole generation of people serve the presence and power of God and serve the development of a black nation. And I said, I be damned if I don't learn how to connect using everything I got to give service. So there is nothing stopping me from doing the unseen work. Because I can look at myself and see myself and be like, yo, let's conquer that. Yo, let's beat that. So it's a great word, but few are confusing for me. Let me know what's confusing for you. Continue posting and let me know what's confusing for you. So whatever's confusing, while we here, I'll work out what I need to work out. As you see now, I can actually set up if you are posting on pages that allow me, that not the private pages, is pages that allow me to actually see what you're posting. Yeah, So whatever's confusing, tell me what is confusing for you so that I can help unconfuse you. And if this is the first time, and I'm not familiar with the name, but if you the first time you watching, the African Speaks has chapters 1 through 25. I've been doing this for a minute. And so, but in this space of doing this unseen labor, the shadow work, after a while, you realize ain't no fear here. And you can sit down when people talk about fear, the unknown, and all this other stuff. I'm sitting down, I'm like, wait. I'm dealing with the God within. I'm connecting with the power inside me. You said we walk to meet the demon within us or face the demon in us. Can you please explain? Let's get it. The demons are the traumas that live inside you. Let me go back. Ooh. The demons are what holds you back from being your most powerful self. Some people deal with abandonment. Some people deal with drugs. Some people deal with pornography. What is keeping you from experiencing the power of God inside you? Some people was whipped, chained, and the demon inside us. The mark of slavery. You don't see yourself as equal as anybody else. So you don't fight or build or develop toward creating institutions of power that fit for ourselves. How do you not embrace? Anytime you can embrace the powerful African being or the divine being inside you, that is demonic. Anything that keeps you from experiencing the God inside, and I'm saying the God within, because all spiritual, other spiritual places will have you looking outside yourself for a divine experience. The divine spirit is inside you. Right? When you sit down and we talk about, and we're going to get there in the later chapters, when you talk about going down through your state of consciousness till you get to the point where you find an experience of oneness. Everything about our socialization in this society keeps us from being the divine, and that's anything that keeps you away from the experience of God is a demon within inside yourself. Society creates those things where, you know what, I can't, any lack of willingness to see your people who look like you, that self-hatred as a people that we have. I can't love black people unconditionally because there's a problem with black people. But that means when you got an issue with black people, that's a negative, demonic, or spiritual entity. Why? Because it's keeping you from God. These are the small things within inside you. What keeps you from being a powerful black man that when you walk in the room, you radiate divine energy so you can change the energy field just by standing there? We talking about the power of divine self. Y'all keep dropping these examples. Woo. Okay. Thank you for much for the explanation. I get it straight now. One love. Told you this is it. And so in that space, when you're trying to get here, you're going through these things. I need you to be able, because whatever visions or creativity that you have inside you, that you've always imagined about yourself, but you never really pursued it. That was your ancestors or that God mind telling you, go be great. Our fear that we believe ourselves inferior. Our fear is the fact that we believe ourselves powerful. Because the minute you walk in power, that is it demands that you never walk backwards again. And so in that space, the only fear you should have is the fear of the Lord. That is true wisdom. Because if you have a healthy fear of God, you will always go toward the experience of what God called you to be. And in that space of journeying toward where God has called you to be and who he told you to be and what he called you to produce, you will develop a state of wisdom. The key to wisdom is the fear, a healthy fear in God. I'm not transitioning over because in my community we have another ceremony, homegoing ceremony this weekend in Texas. One love to the family and the community in Texas. I'm watching individuals transition who has given themselves A healthy fear in God who has gained wisdom and said, when I cross over, you'll be able to call on me and access the wisdom that I have. Now to depart, it says, and to depart from evil is understanding. To depart from the pieces of you that keep you from experiencing your most powerful self is an understanding of how you see you. So if the wisdom, the healthy fear in God is wisdom and departing from evil, which is the part of you that doesn't allow you to embrace the divine in you, okay, we must be about the task of cleansing ourselves, our European concept, one love. Now, in that space, and this is why we talk about, and we brought this up. Thank you, sister. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. We got to clean all of this up. We got to clean it all up. And my favorite person, if you've listened previously, is Dr. Wade Nobles. Is his book around me? I don't have his book around me. Talks about the art of becoming. And we said it in the previous, the Black of Things. In the chapter, The Black of Things, I broke him down completely. Where you're going from Eurocentric psychology to a Black psychology to an African psychology to a Pan-African psychology to the science of becoming. In our community, understanding the power of the divine self is called Kua, the science of becoming what you already are. Now we're phrasing it because nobody understood what Kua was. So we say the best self theology, where we're getting you to understand who God called you to be. And that means it's in any African discipline, because if you take the African spiritual processes serious, it'll get you past all of this stuff. But you got to take it serious. And so I sit down and say, what fear? If I have a healthy fear in the Most High and said, I'm not going to deny access to me, not deny the Most High access to myself. No. So do me a favor, Creator, send me through the fire. Send me through the flames. Send me through the darkest parts of myself to allow me the power to conquer what keeps me from you. Real talk, I don't know if you can see it. I said this is the year of the rhino. I had a vision in the dream, and I sat down and I got the necklace. Man, please. The brother, when I claim that this is the year of the rhino, meaning that I'm not stopping. I understand my truth, understand my journey, I understand what it takes. And now this rhino that is in me, that is thriving to always stand in a healthy fear of God where I can receive wisdom and share it. I'm starting to run. And it doesn't matter whether or not I have a community platform. Sometimes I do. And I'm not. I'm going to start to run. And when this thing gets up and that rhino moves, who stands in front of a rhino? Nobody. And I sat down and said, enter into your rhino season. It took me time after time after time of going in deep into myself, seeing the versions of myself, the divine versions of myself. And when I opened my eyes, it said, become that person that you just experienced inside your psyche, inside your subconsciousness of your subconsciousness of your subconsciousness, to the point where you get to your unconsciousness. Become that person. And that's where it is. So send me. We have, was it, here I am, Lord, send me. Every time the missionaries had to go, we would say that scripture. I'm walking in fearless. And I'm teaching our youth, because I'm called World of Akibaland. Y'all check it out. Imagine if you can get a kid by the age of 12 to be authentically who God called them to be. That's where we missed. Just because our children was in the community don't mean that they was of the community. That's our issue of socialization, of the responsibility of the liberation of Black people. That's important. So in this process of doing this work, why this work is so important is in this work, you find, or it helps you find your life's purpose. Because some of us been here, even some of us who have been doing this for years, still don't understand why were you called. Not the fact that I did what the community wanted me to do. We got to get to the point where I'm called to do what the Creator called me to do, and I'm willing to assist the community. Why were you called? You have more courage to face the unknown, meaning that if you have a vision or a dream, but you're like, I don't know what I want to, who cares? Everything that God called you to create and do and produce will be given to you as you go do it. God can't give you what you ain't working for. That don't make any sense. That's why when you win the lottery, they said, look at it up. The percentage of mostly everybody who win the lottery go broke. Why? Because it's of man. You might use whatever you use to get it, but you don't sit down and we ain't changing communities and neighborhoods and so forth. Then you have more confidence to be your true self. I don't have to bite my tongue for anybody or anything. Why? Because I know I'm walking in a space where God has the dominant thing, spirit led and spirit fed. And sometimes in our church community, we hate sitting in the sacred circle because you got to show your peers the parts of them that they don't like to see. So I got to give you truth, even if truth hurt. And then I want you to give me truth. And I had, one love, Reverend Bakiba, Volume Bakiba. He said, Jay, when you get upset with somebody, man, that mouth is vicious. I paused. I said, yeah, you're right. I got to fix that. And that's going to be another thing, the vibration of words coming up in the up and coming chapters. And then you have a deeper love, acceptance, and understanding of you. Now, wait, because it's not the only you that you see in the mirror. It's the you that you see in everybody else. Right. That Ubuntu, I am because we are. And you see yourself in everybody that you come across. And we'll get to that point. But that's what this unseen labor will do for you. Improves your relationships with others. Increases your empathy and compassion to what so many people are going through. I said, we talk about deadbeat dads. I had a friend, she was talking to me yesterday about deadbeat dads. I said, yeah, well, where's your compassion to the fact that your child's father was born in a slave state that conditioned black men not to be fathers, and he is just one that was caught up in the whirlwind of energy that keeps the black man from doing what he's called to do. It allows us not to be daddies, and he was not saved. So don't take it personal. You can be upset and try to get him to be accountable the best of your ability. But higher thinkers understand, this is the work of a Eurocentric society, like the sister said, cleansing ourselves from European concepts. And so when it happened to one of my goddaughters in the community, I said, why are you upset? How many fathers did your ancestors give you being in this community? You got tons of dads. And so that's something that you need to learn so you can free yourself up from that demon of being mad at your father for a state of abandonment, because that's going to keep you from. But if you sit down and you go in there as a knowing that, the fear of God, I'm going in to do that battle, you're not, man, Pops, come and see me. Why? Because I used you to get here. God said, I knew you before I formed you in the womb. So you chose your parents. I used you to get here. And I appreciate the Creator giving me. That's why I said you ain't come by this way by accident. Those who are watching for the first time, nope. And then it betters your mental and physical health. I'm sitting in the community where we are supposed to be of God, and the people in my community are now talking about their experiencing mental health. I'm sitting there like, what? When does that happen? Easy. When you stop doing the work. Now, of course, in our communities, we should see it. Why? Because they don't have what we have as a community. Then you have a clear perception of the world. That's called Black reality classes. We had that. You get a hold of it and you understand. And you got to teach the reality to your kids. And then it increase creativity. The African speaks Yeah, I was not trained in any of this. Guy said, I need you to do some work. And I learned how to do this. And sometimes I get projects that I'm called to do and I'm learning on the fly. Go figure. The awareness of toxic patterns that you have that you repeat and you see them, these triggers, you see them inside yourself so you can instantly change behavior. Right here. When they said be the solution that you seek, you got to know your own triggers. And you got to take the power back with inside yourself. That is when you understand that I'm walking with a healthy fear because I seek in God, because I seek the wisdom of God to deal with the me so that God works through me even more. And it helps you find the root cause of whatever problems and traumas that you have and offset them. This work is important to this experience. And what I was watching in the process of Eurocentric individuals doing this work, because they're doing this work, they are literally studying African technology, spiritual technology, and they're serving it themselves. Or we came across and they're scientifically proving it. Scientifically proven how to go inside ourselves to reprogram ourselves. And look up Surfing the Wave, where they talk about brain waves and how by the age of 12, we are stuck in a beta state of survival using our lower three chakras. How do you access the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra so that you're walking more from the spiritual aspect versus the physical survival? And they show you how breathing techniques bring you down into that theta and delta state. Why? That's exactly why they said you had to be born again. Why? Because when you are an infant, you come out in that delta state of being calm at all things and able to just take things as they come and flow, and it's not causing a scar. That delta state. And then beyond delta, which they never talk about, is that gamma. That gamma, you are nothing but pure genius. That your brain waves are so even. It's not this. It's not hectic. It's not crazy. You're so at peace and connected to all things. That's what this work does. It opens you up to greater possibilities of experiencing you. And in our community, I will tell you, they said, well, how do you know? What are the things to do that keeps you in line with what the Creator is requiring us to become so that we can access more power of ourselves? We make it easy at the PAOCC, Pan African Orthodox Christian Church, Shrines of the Black Madonna. We make it easy. We say, if it's good for the development of a black nation, it's of God. If it's not good for the development of black nation, it is European. What helps us become a people where our sovereignty is only to the Most High? Mm. And when you come out of this state, each time you meditate, each time each time you go inside, each time you do rituals, if you go inside and you're asking, lead me to an understanding of what I'm called here to do on behalf of the people that I'm called to. Then on behalf, because once we get it right, we fix humanity. Humanity won't change. They talking about World War III. Humanity will not. We can cry about Trump all day, and they can go to war again, and it be World War III. The world will not change until the African genotype stands up. Period. And give them an example of what humanity is supposed to be like. Period. Y'all better tune in to Burkina Faso. We're gonna do an African Afro stream series where we can see where people are waking up and they're only accepting what is good for African people, because in that space, they can shift the dynamics of the world. And if you do this, going inside, dealing with yourself, you come out more and more the spiritual African warrior in you. You become larger than what you are. Then your age, your age don't play a factor in what you can do for the development of black people. Why? Because you realize that most of your power and your work are happening here. You can ritualize change. You can ritualize development. You can ritualize growth. And that's resonance. We're going to get into that in up and coming chapters. As you said earlier, it is not the leaner, it is a continuous journey. I performed shadow work prior to coming to our community, right? Very European influence, real talk. But we have to take it over. I am having a very different experience this time around. So again, and this is why I said if you go to the block of when you get up to the chapter and you're dealing with go back to the black of things. We cannot do it the way they do it. Their level of healing, they're not dealing with anything that we're dealing with. And when you look at these people, these programs that are making millions and millions of dollars of teaching themselves just the surface level of what Africans knew. Just the surface level. Yeah, they're dealing with the power of manifestation and the being able to pull certain things to you. Yeah, they're figuring it out only on the surface, and that's enough for them. But that's not what we're here for. When you come in contact with the true presence and power of God, He's going to give you, you're going to hear drums. You're going to hear ancestors. You're going to feel the building shake and move. You'll be able to talk to nature and watch nature change. You're going to see something magnificent coming out of you. You're going to be able to feel the spirits in the room. I couldn't, when I started feeling the ancestors show up, teaching me this. Real talk. Y'all don't understand how many times Jaramogi came in my house and he's talking to me and I break down in tears. Brother, this needs to be done in our community, whether they see it or not. Do it. And I break down in tears because I fight it. Until I decided to be that African spiritual warrior. And when I tell them, I cannot no longer be voluntold. I'm going to be spirit led and spirit fed. When God says jump, I don't even ask how high. I just do it and He'll take me to the heights. It will take me to the heights that I'm supposed to be. If I'm just a seed to plant, then I'm going to just be a good seed and get planted. But what if this is spirit? Those who have been doing this for 50 years, how powerful is your word when you speak something to life? That's spiritual warrior. When you continue to go in and realize that the effect of all that you have to do if you need to interact with the physical world, it takes the spiritual world first. How big do you still feel the room when you walk in it? Especially if you've been doing this that long. Now I'm sitting there and I'm talking to kids and I said, hey, how old are you? 7? So if I can get you to do this until you 20, how are you walking? How is it that you're not more powerful than the old people when you've been doing this since birth? What does your spiritual warrior look like? That's where we got to go. Because if we may not be the generation, we may or may not be the generation that see the world change. I can't say we not, because look at Burkina Faso. We may see it, we may not. We may not be the ones ushering it. That might be a hurt reality. But man, I'm telling you, every time after a ritual, the spiritual warrior in me gets larger. And in that space, when you're dealing with the ugly parts of you that keep you from experiencing the God within, or even when you get through that, the God within you, there is levels. I need you to look at the 10 levels of consciousness, a part of this chapter, a part of this series. When you get to that, there are levels to this thing. You keep going in until you reach the highest level, which is the messianic thinking, the messianic being inside of you. We're gonna get to that. But I want to break it down to the simplest forms where we can have these conversations. We're gonna get to that. Because every time you come out, you walk into a state of peace. There's this reflection that you see where you look inside of your eyes and you look in the eyes of others and you see the divinity in all of it. That spiritual warrior in you can look past. You could even begin to see the blocks in people when you start looking at people. Oh, you have a digestion. I had a sister one time say, "Hey, brother, you got a digestion issue." What? You got a digestion issue. I can see there's a block in this area. Start eating apricots before you eat to help you digest. She wasn't lying. Then you have individuals, you don't speak your truth. Going in after a while, your truth comes to you, your fearlessness comes through. You at a function of a state of peace. A lot of times we see these brothers out here, rah, 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 rah. When they talk from a state of anger. They're not really called. Why? Because you come out in a state of peace. I had at my old job, and I mentioned this before. Sister said, "Why are you never mad at what goes on in the news?" I am upset, but I have a righteous indignation where I am called to build institutional power at every turn, and I'm gonna let God do the rest. Because you can argue about what Eurocentric people are doing, but if you're not building institutions of power that serves ourselves, you can't find a state of peace. You're always going to be angry. But in this journey of this unseen labor, you come out because you walk in a healthy fear of God. So it doesn't matter where you go and what you go through. When the world comes, which it will, and it comes to your front door, which it will, and it comes to detour you from becoming your divine self, which it will. The more you go and the honest you go inside yourself, you get to see yourself through that journey. And that reflection gives you peace that you can succeed, which it will. And in that space, we continue to go forward, understanding the power that we were called when we're dealing with the unseen labor. And this never ends, never ends. For those who are a part of and connected to the Christian faith in my community, the African version of Christianity, Jesus was always dealing in unseen labor when he was like, I really don't want to do this. You can take this cup from me, but you know what, Pops? Let your will be done, not mine. I'm going to go to the ends of the earth with this one. Why? Because I have a healthy fear in you and know that you controlling this thing. So I'm going to continue moving forward. Y'all look at the 10 levels of consciousness because he reached all 10. What level, when you look at it, what levels are you on? Where do you face? The more you do this work, the deeper your consciousness goes in knowledge of self. Before we called ourselves kings and queens, we knew we were manifestations of divine thoughts. That's why we called ourselves gods. This will get you to understand who you are and whose you are and why you're here in the power of divine self. You have to do the unseen labor. Without it, you'll never know how powerful you are because it is our job to reclaim and redefine what it means to be a spiritual being with a human experience. We ain't even touching the surface of what we are possible of creating and doing. Let's show them. Let's fearlessly walk into the greatness of who we are and show the world the divine self. If we can do that, we can watch the world transform. Ain't that something? Because we say that the church is supposed to be a transformation agent. What are we transforming to? Let's get it. One love. See you next week.